A very good evening to everyone. 28th of June 2023. Should this be a day of celebration or what? I have Jay with me. I'm just sending in a co host invite or invite to strike underscore IC. Right. So we have that and we are ready to go. And I think we should celebrate it because it's not just a sign of things said and done, but it's a sign of things to come. So, to that effect, let me just sound it out. That's the bell. That's the bell of a coming bull market that has already started. I wanted it to be loud and clear, and I think I've made it pretty loud and clear. Uh, and it comes on the back of what I had to do, which is 100% U-turn. And this is not, you know, not without great skepticism, but also a lot of difference in what has happened in different parts of the world and trying to understand the market dynamics. And that was really key. But how is it going to unfold from here? It looks pretty simple to me, despite all the complications and things that we are waiting to see happen. One of the things that I'm still waiting to see happen is a clear-cut sign that the dollar will continue to decline. I think that signal is still not completely out, and it's an important one in the overall thesis of how things will continue to reflate. I'm not sure it happens right away after some time, but we are pretty close. We are seeing an outstretched move in some of the cross currency pairs, but we should get there. Now, I did put out this tweet in uh, a mix of Hindi and English, and there are some people who want me to talk on that. I think when it comes to Q&A, I will take the language that I'm asked for. Right now, I will attempt to do a bit of both, so that all audiences can get a clear sight of what I'm trying to say. So मैंने अभी अभी घंटा बजाया. ये घंटा ये बजाया इसलिए कि जो हो चुका है, जो बोल चुके हैं उसके लिए नहीं. ये वो अलग सेलिब्रेशन है कि हमने बोला था, जो कि हम कभी बोलते नहीं है. इट्स नॉट पार्ट ऑफ आवर इंडिया चार्ट्स कल्चर टू से कि ये बोले थे, ये हुआ. दिस इज अ साइन ऑफ थिंग्स टू कम. दिस इज अ सिग्नेचर दैट वी हैव ब्रोकन आउट ऑफ अ वेरी लार्ज ब्रॉडनिंग फेज. और एक और दिन बाकी है, शायद फ्राइडे का दिन बाकी है, जब तक कि यू विल गेट एडिशनल सिग्नल्स जो हमारे प्रोप्राइटरी मोमेंटम इंडिकेटर है, एटलीस्ट फॉर मिड कैप्स एंड स्मॉल कैप्स. वी विल गेट बाई सिग्नल्स दोनों में मंथली चार्ट्स पे, विच इज़ अ वेरी हाई टाइम फ्रेम. मंथली क्लोजिंग जो कि फ्राइडे को आएगी, उसमें आई थिंक द ब्रॉड मार्केट सिग्नल विल गिव अस बाई सिग्नल्स फर्स्ट. तो सबसे पहले मिड कैप, स्मॉल कैप, शायद निफ्टी 500 में भी ऐसा सिग्नल आ सकता है. मैंने चेक नहीं किया है क्योंकि इट्स अ ब्रॉड इंडेक्स एंड इट हैज़ बीन अहेड ऑफ द निफ्टी इन टर्म्स ऑफ ब्रेकिंग आउट. जो हमारे हाइज बने थे अक्टूबर 2021 के और दिसंबर 2022 के, दोनों के जो हाइज का एक ट्रेंड लाइन है, उस ट्रेंड लाइन को सरपास सबसे पहले इन्होंने किया, मिड कैप्स ने किया, फिर निफ्टी 500 ने किया. निफ्टी अभी तक वहां तक बस पहुंच पाई है. टुडे इट केम वेरी वेरी क्लोज टू दैट लेवल, but it did not surpass it or touch the line, missed the line by a few points. But the Nifty 500 is trading above that line, and which is why it makes it interesting that the broad indexes have actually broken out. So the 500 I just checked will not necessarily confirm on Friday, बट मिड और स्मॉल कैप कंफर्म कर देंगे और दूसरे इंडाइसेस का हम लोग इंतजार करेंगे. बट सेंस ये है कि अगर वो लेवल पार हो चुका है, निफ्टी 500 ने पहले पार कर दिया है और दूसरे इंडाइसेस ने भी कर दिया है, तो अंत में जो मेन इंडेक्स है वो भी कर ही देगा. और उसी का सिमिलर, तो उसका लेवल क्या है, 19,050 के आसपास है. इट्स अ चेंजिंग लेवल एवरी डे बाय अ फ्यू पॉइंट्स. बैंक निफ्टी में सिमिलर लेवल करीब 45,500 के आसपास है, विच इज़ मच हायर एक्चुअली, क्योंकि 4500 जब तक पहुंचेगा तब तक शायद निफ्टी 19,200 तक भी पहुंच जाए. So long way to go in these. Whatever numbers I'm throwing out are, this is all short term. This is like 1 day, 2 day, 5 day. बट बात इससे बहुत आगे की है, क्योंकि ये जिस तरह हमने पिछले हफ्ते में भी देखा कि वी सीन अ पुल बैक टू दी मूविंग एवरेजेस, और ये चीज़ हर टाइम फ्रेम में हो रही है। ये जो एक्सटेंशन हम लोग देख रहे हैं, ये मंथली चार्ट्स पे भी पिछले पूरे साल में हुआ कि जब 15,200 तक भी हम लोग गिरे थे तो मंथली एवरेजेस तक पहुंचे, वो एवरेजेस ऊपर आ गए, और फिर दोबारा जब दिसंबर से मार्केट गिरा तो वो एवरेजेस एक हायर लेवल पे 15,000 के आसपास थे, और बढ़ते बढ़ते 16,000 तक आ गए, और बाजार फिर उसी लेवल से घूम गया 16,800 16,700 तक, जहाँ पे एवरेजेस आ गए थे। ये लेवल टूटा नहीं, ये बहुत ही इंपॉर्टेंट बात है। और यही चीज़ हम लोग मार्च के बॉटम से अब डेली लेवल पे देख रहे हैं। डेली चार्ट्स पे भी लेवल्स जो हैं वो टूट नहीं रहे हैं, छोटा सा रिट्रेसमेंट पुल बैक आता है और ये आगे की तरफ बढ़ जाता है। उसको हम लोग एलियट वेव के लैंग्वेज में वी कॉल देम एन एक्सटेंशन। For those who are familiar or less familiar with wave theory is the only forecasting tool in all of technical analysis. बाकी सब जो है वो ट्रेंड फॉलोइंग इन नेचर है। अगर हम लोग सिर्फ मोमेंटम इंडिकेटर्स यूज करते हैं देन दे आर ओनली ट्रेंडिंग इन नेचर। भाव बढ़ रहा है इसलिए बढ़ता रहेगा, इससे ज़्यादा कोई भी कुछ बोल नहीं सकता है। ये नहीं बोल सकते कि आगे क्या होगा और कहाँ तक जा सकता है। These adaptations can only be done with the use of Elliott waves and Fibonacci, and then it can be taken to another level, which is when you start adding sentiment and social theory to it. Then you can actually mix it with economics and fundamentals of a business as well. This is what most people don't know, don't appreciate, don't understand, and which is what we are dedicated to teaching, explaining through various posts and the monthly or bi-monthly long short report. My original objective was to write it every month, but as markets are slowing down, कभी कभी कुछ नया ऑब्जर्वेशन नहीं होता है लिखने के लिए, बताने के लिए, या कुछ एक ऐसे टर्निंग पॉइंट है जिसका हम लोग वेट करते हैं कि ऐसा एक सिग्नल आ जाए तब हम उसके बारे में लिखें। जैसे कि दिसंबर का जब टॉप हो रहा था, देन एवरीथिंग वाज एट एन एक्सट्रीम। यू हैड द एक्सट्रीम हाईएस्ट लॉन्ग पोजीशंस, द एक्सट्रीम हाईएस्ट प्रीमियम्स इन द निफ्टी, and all of that meant that this is going to be an important top. Okay. The question was important top to what degree? Is it going to be a significant crash? And if we actually listen to the global theories and all the recession talk around the world, you would have thought that was the case, which is sort of how we took it at the start of December. If you have the most bullish extreme sentiment, then possibly it means that you will end up in a major decline. मगर जो गिरावट आई दिसंबर के लोज तक, उसमें कई जो यूएस के इंडाइसेस है उन्होंने न्यू लो नहीं मारा, जैसे एसएनपी है। नैस्डैक ऑलमोस्ट गॉट टू द प्रीवियस लो बट मेड अ डबल बॉटम, एंड सेंटिमेंट वाज एक्सट्रीम नेगेटिव व्हेन यू लुक्ड एट ग्लोबल मार्केट्स। सो देयर वाज सम काइंड ऑफ अ ह्यूज डिस्कनेक्ट। भारत के बाजार में जो हो रहा था और ग्लोबल बाजारों में जो हो रहा था, एक बहुत बड़ा डिस्कनेक्ट हो गया दोनों में। कि बाजार जो है इस तरह नहीं बिहेव कर रहा है कि बहुत बड़ी मंदी आने वाली है, वो इस तरह बिहेव कर रहा है कि ये बहुत बड़ी मंदी खत्म हो चुकी है। क्योंकि व्हेन सेंटिमेंट इज एट अ नेगेटिव एक्सट्रीम देन मार्केट्स आर गोइंग टू रिवर्स। बट ये जो है एक महीने पहले ही भारत के बाजार में एक्सट्रीम बुलिश सेंटिमेंट है और यूएस के बाजार में 3 हफ्ते बाद एक्सट्रीम नेगेटिव सेंटिमेंट है। ये जो क्रॉस रोड से इसके बीच में थोड़ा बहुत हम लोग फंसे, क्योंकि ग्लोबल मार्केट जो है वो जनवरी से ही रिकवर करने लग गए थे और भारत का बाजार है जो मार्च तक गिरता गया। तो इट स्टार्टेड टू लुक लाइक वी आर डीकपलिंग ऑन द वे डाउन। फॉरगेट डीकपलिंग ऑन द वे अप, नाउ वी आर डीकपलिंग ऑन द वे डाउन। बट ट्रुथ तो ये है कि हम लोग एक करेक्टिव फेज में अक्टूबर 2021 से थे, एंड दैट करेक्टिव फेज 18 मंथ्स लॉन्ग ended in March 2023. I made that guesstimate of 18 months purely based on the time length of the 2000 to 2001 bear market, which started in March of 2000 and ended it with 9/11 in September, October of 2001. So exactly 18 months. So I said, okay, here's a guesstimate. Most bear markets last plus or minus of that. कभी 24 महीने तक भी जाता है, कभी 18 महीने, कभी 15 महीने. But जो shorter corrections होते हैं bull market के अंदर, they end in 12-13 months. So usually when it goes longer than that, then it's a bigger consolidation. So I had put an 18-month timeline, but apparently we reached that 18-month timeline by March of 2023 without a big and significant decline. And in that sense, it started to look like that this was a consolidation and not a bear market. एंड बेस्ड ऑन व्हाट वाज हैपनिंग ग्लोबली, जो ग्लोबल नेगेटिव सेंटिमेंट है उसके बेसिस पे मैंने जज किया कि भारत का बाजार भी जो है डिस्पाइट द एक्सट्रीम बुलिश सेंटिमेंट रीडिंग्स विल नॉट बी एबल टू go into that mode where it will go into an extreme sell-off, because the only reason for India to fall off a cliff was if the world falls apart. Why? Because there wasn't excessive leverage in our system. Why wasn't there excessive leverage? क्योंकि एक तो हमारा जो पूरा ट्रेडिंग है, एक्सेसिव लीवरेज आता कैसे है? या तो आप बोरोइंग कर लो, बहुत सारा मार्जिन फंडिंग हो जाए, ब्रोकर्स दिला दें, सबको माल दिला दें, तो भर गया सबका पेट। ये एक तरीका है। दूसरा तरीका है कि फ्यूचर्स मार्केट जब बहुत एक्टिव होता है, उसमें बहुत सारी पोजीशन बिल्ड हो गई, बाजार भारी हो गया, ये होती है। ये बात 2008 में ट्रू थी, क्योंकि फ्यूचर्स का मार्केट एफएनओ में 80% कंट्रीब्यूट कर रहा था। तो फ्यूचर्स मार्केट में जितनी पोजीशन बिल्ड हो गई, जब अनवाइंड होने लगी, तो इट क्रिएटेड अ डीप बेयर मार्केट। सो वी वर रियली फॉलोइंग ग्लोबल क्यूज एंड वी हैड एक्सेसिव लिवरेज। राइट नाउ वी आर फॉलोइंग ग्लोबल क्यूज, बट द लिवरेज वाज आउट ऑफ द सिस्टम। सेबी ने भी 2000 लेट 2020-21 से ही मार्जिन एक्सपोजर्स पे इतने सारे मार्जिन लगा दिए, ये मार्जिन ना वो मार्जिन, कि आप ट्रेड ही ना कर पाओ। आपको ऐसा लगेगा कि सेबी शायद मंदी चाहती है दुनिया में, बट परंतु उन्होंने, उनके ये सब करने का जो नेट एंड रिजल्ट हुआ, रिजल्ट तो ये हुआ कि लीवरेज हट गया सिस्टम से। तो अब लीवरेज नहीं है, तो आप बड़ा फॉल या बड़ा अनवाइंड, जो हम लोग शायद पिछले 2003 या 2008 के बुल मार्केट में देखते थे, कभी कभी 20-30% का डिक्लाइन 2 महीने के अंदर भी हुआ है, एंड दैट डिड नॉट स्पॉइल द बुल रन। उस तरह के डिक्लाइंस हम लोग अब देखते नहीं है, क्योंकि 2009-10 के बाद धीरे धीरे जो जो ऑप्शन साइड है, उसने पूरा टर्नओवर कैप्चर कर लिया। पहले 50-60% था, 70% हो गया, अब 85% तक पहुंच गया है पिछले 2 सालों में। तो 85% ऑफ योर एफ एन ओ, इफ इट इज इन ऑप्शंस, ओके, देर इज लीवरेज, यस, बट इट एंड्स अप अनवाइंडिंग एंड क्लोजिंग एवरी मंथ। वो फ्यूचर की तरह रोल ओवर नहीं होता है, खत्म हो जाता है, बहुत ही कम डिलीवरियाँ होती हैं, इवन दो इट इज डिलीवरी सेटल्ड, and therefore that leverage is also missing from the system. So sort of we don't have the situation for a major decline, which is probably one reason why it didn't happen in the index, even though it has happened in individual stocks and individual names. And therefore the corrective process went through its own phase. It happened in individual stocks sectors. जो चीज़ों में वीकनेस थी, जो बहुत ज़्यादा चल गए थे, जिनमें ग्रोथ का सिनेरियो है नहीं, वो पिट के गिर गए, और जो जहाँ पे वो सिनेरियो था, उन्होंने आउट परफॉर्म किया, और इसी फेज के अंदर भी उन्होंने आउट परफॉर्म किया और गिरे नहीं है, ऐसा भी देखा गया है। तो वो भी एक सिग्नेचर है, जो कि हम लोग कभी, इफ दिस वाज अ बेयर मार्केट, ऐसा कभी देखा नहीं जाता है। बेयर मार्केट में सब कुछ गिर जाता है, चाहे वो अच्छा हो या बुरा हो। ऐसा सिनेरियो जहाँ पे कई चीज़ें आउट परफॉर्म कर रही हैं बिकॉज ऑफ देयर ओन सिचुएशन इज़ वेरी वेरी रेयर, and that itself is a signature that this was a consolidation phase and not a bear market. So this is a sense that I had to, and it's something that I was saying even from 2021 का टॉप के बाद भी मैं यही चीज़ बोल रहा था। कुछ समय तक हमने गिव अप किया, क्योंकि ग्लोबल का जो सेल ऑफ था, इट वाज प्रीटी शार्प, सो वी डिड गिव अप फॉर अ while. But once it became clear कि the global markets are bottoming out, I sort of backed off from that view and took a 180-degree turn, and that turn has sort of played out. So this is the situation we are in, and that turn essentially means that the bull run that started in 2020 is not over. We had one phase of that bull run. We have gone through the first consolidation, in which weak stocks and hands have been shaken out, and now what you are witnessing from March of 2023 onwards is a resumption of that bull phase in another leg. So who will be the outperforming good actors of this bull leg? The very same ones that were taking off in the previous phase. जो जो सेक्टर्स थे जो 10 साल से कंसोलिडेट कर रहे थे, 10-10 साल का रेंज उन्होंने ब्रेकआउट किया है, वही सेक्टर्स सबसे ज़्यादा परफॉर्मेंस देंगे। दूसरे जो सेक्टर्स जो पिछले 10 साल में चल रहे थे, वो धीरे धीरे आपको परफॉर्मेंस रेशियो जो है कम देंगे। दिस इज हाउ इट यूजुअली ऑपरेट्स। इट डजंट मीन दैट दे गो डाउन, दे जस्ट गिव यू अ वीकर परफॉर्मेंस बिकॉज दे डिड टू वेल प्रीवियसली, दे बिकेम ओवर वैल्यूड, और जो चीज़ नहीं चल रही थी उसका फेज और या उसका दौर शुरू हो गया है। तो उस दौर में आपको जो सेक्टर्स नहीं निकल रहे हैं, जो चलना शुरू कर रहे हैं, उनके पास वापस जाके ध्यान देना पड़ेगा। Some of my favorites may not have moved, but we found, whatever is, I've been saying this since February, that you do performance chasing, because in a bull run performance chasing works. जो चीज़ चल रही है उसी के पीछे भागो, जो चीज़ नहीं चल रही है उसको पीछे छोड़ दो, उसके साथ लगाव लगा के मत बैठो, और that really pays off. It has paid off in the last 3 months, in terms of choosing which sectors you should be in. अगर परफॉर्मेंस डिफेंस में था, तो आप अगर मार्च से भी डिफेंस के ही कंपनियों के पीछे लगे रहते, तो you would have had almost a 40-50% return in that single sector alone. So that is how it's played out. So you have to look at where the performance is and stick with that. And that's, I think, been the case here. whether it's defense, whether it's been some of the PSUs in the power sector, it's been manufacturing companies, some of the mid caps that was outperforming throughout this phase. So I did a scan and posted a list of what was outperforming, based on our trade setups, and that's sort of where we search for new ideas कि नए ideas जो हैं उसी स्कैन में उसी चीज़ में मिलेंगे जो कि परफॉर्म कर रही थी और एक तरह से पैटर्न्स को होल्ड कर रही थी, तोड़ नहीं रही थी, एंड दैट एंड्स अप बीइंग ऑन टॉप ऑफ योर लिस्ट. बाकी जो गिरा हुआ है वापस बढ़ेगा, दैट्स अ डिफरेंट टाइप ऑफ बेट. You take that bet only if you're very sure that those stocks or sectors go through growth phases. Because मैंने जो देखा है 2005 से लेके 2007 के बीच में एक मिड स्टेज था जब तक कि मिड कैप सब एक साथ चल रहे थे, एंड देन आफ्टर दैट सडनली दे वर अंडर परफॉर्मिंग बिकॉज लॉट ऑफ देम विच हैड run up just in the first phase of value buying were really not growth stories yet, and therefore they start to underperform. And only the sectors which were really the booming areas of that time continued to do well. So segregating that is very, very important. And the last year and a half has actually done that segregation for us. All you need to do is run a simple scan and see what is working and what is not working, and chase what is working. It's not more complicated than that. Investing and trading has never been complicated. It's just that we complicate it. If you just do simple things, you can find all the ideas. But of course, that doesn't mean you don't need to have any knowledge. You need to have some knowledge to do those simple things. Get that knowledge and start doing it. That's about all. You don't need a degree to be a smart investor or trader. That is my belief. Because 90% क्या है, 99.99% of my knowledge comes from self learning, क्योंकि किसी MBA कॉलेज में ये ना पढ़ाया जाता था. Flame is probably a new university which is at least trying to impart knowledge in the investment space, but there was nothing like that 20 years ago, and 30 years ago there were no books also available in this country that you could pick up and really master in terms of the investment science. So the availability of information, knowledge is so vast that if you just put your mind to it and read up on some basic principles and apply them, you are well off and better off than most people. That is what I believe. And so not complicating it too much. When there's so much theory around, you have to look at simple things, and we've sort of laid out that framework कि वो simple चीज़ें क्या हैं. मैंने कुछ देर पहले बोला sentiment जैसे, और sentiment के बारे में मैंने काफ़ी एग्जांपल्स दिए कि जनवरी में क्या सिचुएशन थी, दिसंबर में क्या सिचुएशन थी, और मार्च तक क्या सिचुएशन थी. क्योंकि दिसंबर और मार्च के बीच में 18,800 से 16,800 2,000 पॉइंट मार्केट गिरा, 18% अप्रोक्सीमेटली. और इस 18% फॉल में sentiment went from the most extreme bullish to the most extreme bearish, because even in India, FIs ended up with the largest short position. Premiums were the only thing which was still high. Every other indicator that I was looking at went crazy. Like the volume of puts being traded were the highest on record, more than even in the 2008 bear market. When you see things like that, you feel that this is slightly out of whack. The market is not down 30, 40, 50%. But the parameters are behaving as if that has already happened, which is bizarre. And so that's basically a signal. In Elliott waves, there's a theory that when you make a wave too low, sometimes the sentiment or the fundamentals are as bad or even worse than they were at the actual bottom. Okay, and that is a signature. When sentiment is worse at a higher bottom than it was at the lowest level, that is a signature of wave 2. Okay, and we've seen something of that nature in what we saw in 2023. Not in all indicators, but some of the indicators really went to even more extremes. Some of them got close enough to it, and that is bizarre. And that only indicates that the bullish case is even bigger than what most of us imagine. Now, all the thesis against the bullish phase is based on only one presumption, and it has nothing to do with India. That is the best part. The presumption is based on कि US का कुछ हो जाएगा. एक चीज़ जो किसी को समझ में नहीं आई, मैं मतलब पिछले 15 साल से समझने की कोशिश कर रहा हूँ since 2008, and I found it that it's bizarre because when you try to understand something against monetary policy, you cannot make logic out of everything. The fact is very simple, and the simple fact is liquidity is expanding. और उसके अगेंस्ट आप अगर झगड़ा कर रहे हो या लड़ाई कर रहे हो तो आप जीतने नहीं वाले हो. There can be near-term hiccups, and that has happened. That is sort of what 21-22 was all about. And there was a hiccup even in 2016. There have been many hiccups. 2018, there was another hiccup. But at the end of each hiccup, there is more expansion. And the reason for that is that we are trying to inflate away the debt. These are only two, there are very two simple choices that the governments had to make कि भाई हमें जो हमारा पूरा डेट बढ़ गया है इसको इन्फ्लेट करना है कि इसको डिफ्लेट करना है. अब डिफ्लेट मतलब हम सबका लॉसेस लेंगे, सब लोग डिफॉल्ट करेंगे, गवर्नमेंट भी डिफॉल्ट करेगा. बट ऐसा करेगा कौन? ऐसे ही करने की चाहत किसी की नहीं होती है. और चाहत जब नहीं होती है तो सबसे पहला अटेम्प्ट इन्फ्लेशन का ही होता है. और ये चीज़ किसी भी फेज़ में आप देख सकते हो, क्योंकि थोड़ा दिमाग खोलना पड़ेगा. आप 1900s में जाओगे, ग्रेट डिप्रेशन की तो सब बातें करेंगे. कोई आपको ये बताएगा कि 1920s में ग्रेट डिप्रेशन के 5 साल पहले फ्रांस में हाइपर इन्फ्लेशन क्यों हुआ? और ये चीज़ अगर कोई आपको नहीं बता सकता है, सो देन यू विल नॉट रियली हैव द आंसर्स. व्हाई डिड यू हैव such runaway situations? Some people may put it on World War II, but it finally comes down to economics, right? What was the situation of debt? You borrowed too much, you spent too much, whether it was for war or other reasons, and you had to inflate that debt. You paid for it by printing money, and that is usually the case. So when that happens, what happens to stock prices? The answer is stock prices go up. And that's the simple reason why, despite what looks like to some people as a recession in Germany, the German stock market is close to an all-time high. And if you can't wrap your head around that, then you'll probably not be able to explain markets as they behave today. And the reason is very, very simple, but we complicate it. We complicate it with theory कि ऐसा होगा, ऐसा होना ही चाहिए. और बाजार मार्केट्स डोंट केयर. इफ अगर आप किसी चीज़ को लेके जिद करोगे, बाजार के साथ आप जिद नहीं कर सकते हो. बहुत सालों से इनफैक्ट बहुत ही अच्छी किताब लिखी थी EWI ने, कॉन्कर द क्रैश करके. उसमें उन्होंने कई चीज़ें लिखी, कुछ सच हैं कुछ नहीं हैं. उससे काफ़ी कुछ सीखने को भी मिलता है, और काफ़ी कुछ फिर हम देखते हैं कि things have also gone out of hand beyond what was expected. इन्फ्लेशन काम नहीं करेगा बाजार को संभालने में, ऐसा उन्होंने लिखा. 15 साल से काम कर रहे हैं. 15 years is a very very long period. So to believe that something will not work in the end and spread that over 20 years can amount to financial catastrophe. Why? Because one, you did not participate in the market, which means अगर आपके पास सेविंग्स थी और आपने बाजार में पार्टिसिपेट नहीं किया तो उस सेविंग्स की वैल्यू घट गई, बिकॉज इन्फ्लेशन वॉज अगेंस्ट यू फॉर ऑलमोस्ट 15 years. Suddenly your purchasing power is gone. So it's very very improper to take that kind of a stance without understanding time. I think time is the element that kills almost everybody. We think we understand time. I don't think anybody does, and I will not accept any claim over time. uh, Having said that, there are tools of timing inside time analysis that can be useful for risk management. I'm not denying that, but what we cannot say is that this will happen in this period of time. That is what I'm trying to say. So because you cannot put a time to it, sometimes what we expect ends up taking such a long period of time that it ends up being too early or too late. And that is why you have to pay attention to not just what you expect, but also to what the market is doing at that point of time in terms of the momentum setup, trade setup, and the changing structure. And similarly, sentiment. If its sentiment is fluctuating from one end of the pendulum to the other, we cannot be completely ignorant of that fact. So here we are coming out of not just the most extreme short position. अभी short position तो कट गई है. FI का जितना short था वो zero हो गया. Now they are all at neutral position. Now the point is, will they go from neutral to buying? And that has started to happen, at least in the last 3 days. I don't know आज की expiry के बाद FI का कितना position कटेगा. We'll have to see the end of day data. I don't know, Jay, if you have had a look at it. But at least till yesterday we saw long positions add up and go to I don't know, 40,000 contracts or something like that.
Yes, so it was around 47,000 contracts. And actually today's data is still not updated on NSE.
Right. So once we get that, we'll get a clue कि उसमें कटा is gone back to 10-20,000, or is it staying up because post expiry longs rollover हुए कि नहीं हुए, that we'll be able to understand. But it's still not an extreme. Extremes can be 90,000, 100,000 contracts from a major extreme point of view. In fact, major extreme तो 2016 में हमने more than 300,000 contracts तक भी देखा है. But उसके बाद, due to various measures, FII positioning has shifted to SGX or other places, and somehow it doesn't build up that much in India. So usually at 100,000 contracts, we see that it becomes significant. But shorter term, sometimes it also becomes significant at 60, 70,000. So we'll see how that plays out. But we are not there yet across the board. I mean, if I get one indicator showing me कि position बहुत ज़्यादा है, I will not go by that alone. I will go by a bunch of indicators, and in that sense, uh, I will use many things to put it together and then understand that yes, we have reached an extreme bullish scenario. Chevan, I've just sent you an invite, speaker invite, so you can accept that. Uh, so yeah, this is. I think this is the setup with which we are here. The point I'm making. Some of you might have already read some of the articles that I've published recently, talking about numbers as high as 35,000, and there's a reason to it. भारत में जितने बुल मार्केट्स आए हैं, they all have seen a huge expansion, and at least a minimum, let me say, in a 1 to 2 year period, doubling of the indices. Now, before I continue ranting about levels and further thought process on how markets unfold, what I'd want to also do very very quickly is give out a shout out on the Strike platform. We've spoken about it before also. You can see the strike handle, so you can actually follow that, at strike underscore IC. As we continue to update, for the last 10 days we've been on the beta testing platform. So some of you who've seen the links have probably started using it already. We've not wide scale publicized it or send it out on our emails and etc., simply because, like I said, it's beta, and we also adding new modules for the FNO, for fundamentals, for various other things, various tools that you'll find very, very interesting. People are already finding what we've done interesting. So imagine we have, handful of new segments that will get added, which will make it even more interesting. And that's when we'll start probably announcing it even more. But having said that, I just want to add that, because I'm getting a lot of these questions. Some people want to know, is it for everybody? Is it only for insiders? And insiders, by insiders, we mean people who are subscribers of Indiacharts. Some of them want to know that, is it for us? And some of the outside people want to know, is it for us? It's for everybody. I get both type of questions. This is a new platform. It will have its own website. It has its own dashboard and web setup. It will have its own downloadable setup, and anybody and everybody will be able to use it. We will be starting off with a free period so that you can enjoy, share, and everybody gets to know about it and get a feel of it. And so it's a good thing to do is to use the first 30-50 day free period that you're really getting on it, and then we'll go live with everything over a period of time and keep adding features. Chavan, you want to add anything to that before I continue?
Yeah, Rohit. So, fingers crossed. Yes, right now Strike is in the beta version. Uh, Probably, we'll start adding more and more features. This is an analytical tool. You ask for it, and everything is there. Whether you are a trader or an investor, we have covered all aspects of both the things, and of course, our strategy, right from strategy builder to peer comparisons and sectoral analysis. Everything has been accommodated into the platform. uh, Very happy to announce also that we got the license for RRG, that is the relative rotation graphs. That will also be going live. Presently, I'm not sure how many of you know this. Uh, it works wonderfully well. Uh, of course, it's available only on Bloomberg, Refinitiv, and one more website, which is Stock Charts. But for Indian market, will be the first one. So that also will go live. Lot many features is going to come in the next 1.5 months. So stay tuned, follow us. You can it's a platform for everyone. You can just go to web.strike.money and you can sign up and you can start using it. We would love to have your feedbacks. And also looking forward. Thank you so much, Rohit.
Thank
Yep.
you, Chavan. No, Chavan, Jay, Shivam, who's here, Sundar, who's joined us, all of them have been putting day in and day out to make this happen from various angles, in terms of what you get to see, so that you have the best user experience, the right tools and right look what you want to use upfront. You want to really look at how an analyst, how you would think as an analyst, what you would look for, what data points you want to see right in front of you, and that's what we want to show at the first click. So that's how it's being thought about. And yeah,
And Rohit, one more point I just want to
please.
add is the Strike platform supports only the desktop and the laptop version, so don't try to open it from your mobile. It doesn't work. So just whenever you are there in front of the laptop or your desktop, just go to web.strike.money and start using it. Thank you.
Right. So with that, let me then take on get back to the market discussion. And what I was highlighting is that every big swing, whether you go back to 2000, you go back to 1994, 2009, 2013, 2020. What has always happened is that each time one of these bullish phases has started in India, within the next 6, 12, 18 months, we have seen the indices sort of double in value. So even from the lows of the COVID 7,500, if you doubled it, you end up at 15,000. We ended up till 18,000. And so very similarly, that metric along with some other calculations, we can sort of end up pointing anywhere between 30, 35, 37,000 based on different calculations, with the underlying thesis being this is a continuation of the bull market, right? And if it's a continuation and a consolidation phase has ended, then the next phase would be equally, big and sizable, with a lot of things happening, which today I think few are able to imagine. There are many who are imagining, and some people have started to note that something has changed. Some people might still be on the sidelines hoping for that big crash correction pullback. But as you just saw in the last 4 days, we are not even falling back below the 20-day average. And that's sort of signaling to us that even this particular rally in the short term is going through what we call as an extension. And when an extension happens, it'll just keep giving you those small pullbacks and keep going higher, higher, higher. And at the end, you'll end up realizing it ended up adding another 1,000, 1,500 points before you paused for a decent retracement of some kind. So that's what you need to be prepared for. In fact, you'll have to take opportunities at a stock specific level or sector specific level, because there's a lot of rotation. As you noticed, Bank Nifty peaked around 3 weeks ago. It pulled back, did a full cycle, as we call it in our terminology. You've got a full cycle where the RMI indicator goes back below zero, does a small retracement, and then started bullish again, and it's given a fresh buy signal. That has not happened with the Nifty. It is just extending, and the reason is banking did its correction. Correction is done, over, finished. And same thing may happen with different stocks at times, and with different sectors at times. Some of them are extending, some of them are completing a pullback and starting up again. But because of this rotation, where one sector or one stock does well at a different point in time, the main index, which is a composition of different sectors and stocks, is not able to pull back and just keeps extending. And so that's what is behind it. And so you'll have to be opportunistic in terms of keeping your eyes open on where opportunities show up, and based on you build your own stock list where you want to move in, move out, and then start monitoring those, for those individual pullbacks and retracements and opportunities, rather than waiting for the index to really fall and then I will buy. Then that's not going to happen. You just end up missing out on the entire move. And that's, I think, yeah, that requires mental preparation. Mental preparation to first of all accept that you are in a bull market, because that's the first thing. Because unless you accept that, you cannot approach this market in the right way. So despite the wait between Feb and March for this low point to happen, I think that mindset made all the difference in being able to get on the right side. And I know that from history that if your mindset is wrong, then you keep missing out. You'll keep looking for a top, and then it never happens. So we got the mindset right, we got the move right. Now the only factors we are watching is things like, at a global level, things like liquidity. Now liquidity is clearly going back and forth, but on a 2-year, 3-year basis, the work that I'm reading says that liquidity will expand. Now, the short-term risk is, of course, post this debt ceiling, being raised, that there could be some tightening. But overall, if it's going to expand, those are near-term things that we'll deal with. And the thing that we cannot know, and this is what I always point out to, what we cannot know. What we know is all fine. What we cannot know and we try to over-predict is things like, liquidity will tighten and Fed has no choice. And the truth is that Fed has every choice, so they can really handle it on both sides of the equation. Even when borrowing increases, they can provide liquidity from other means, even though while they're doing QE, which they have done in the last 9 months. So if they could do that in the last 9 months, why are we believing that they will not find a way to manage the situation? Because it's not like हमें सब पता है और उनको कुछ नहीं मालूम है, वो बेवकूफ़ है, ऐसा तो नहीं है ना. तो ये सोचना कि फेड बेवकूफ़ है और हम लोग को सब कुछ आता है इधर बैठ के, that's the kind of thinking I find sometimes when people make that kind of a forecast. I'm not saying the data is wrong or the assumptions are wrong, but what is wrong is in expecting that nobody else knows that those assumptions, because it's the data is with everybody. Today, the only thing everybody has is the data. So interpretation of that and possibilities requires a little logical thinking. थोड़ा जमीन पे आके आप बस सोचो इस बारे में कि क्या आप अपनी मौत खुद ले लोगे, तो बस बात वहीं ख़त्म हो गई. तो बात जब वहीं ख़त्म हो गई, then you know all the answers. So you have to think a little loud. I mean, if you were an Indian, would you ensure that India gets into big trouble, and you're in charge of that decision? What are you going to do? So it's the same thing. Fed is sitting there, they have all their data points, they're looking at the same things that you're looking at, and you're presuming that they will ensure that everything falls apart. That's a very bad assumption to start with. And this can be found, I mean, see, behavioral finance is very, very old. आप किताब पढ़ लो, किताब का नाम है रेमिनेंसेस ऑफ अ स्टॉक ऑपरेटर. किताब नहीं पढ़नी है तो उसकी ऑडियो बुक भी अवेलेबल है, ऑडियो बुक पढ़ लो, शायद इट मे बी फ्री ऑन यूट्यूब ऑल्सो. मेनी बुक्स हैव नाउ बिकम ब्रोकन डाउन एंड गॉन ऑन यूट्यूब. उसके आप ऑडियो बुक को पढ़ोगे, उसका उसमें एक पॉइंट है जहाँ पे वो 2007 की बात, आई मीन 1907 की बात करता है, 1907 में क्या हुआ था कि यूएस का जो फाइनेंशियल मार्केट था वो टाइट हो गया था और उसमें कई लोगों ने लीवरेज लेके शेयर खरीद लिए थे. तो उस समय पे व्हाट ही सेज इज दैट ही हैड अ शॉर्ट पोजीशन. ही थॉट दैट दिस विल फॉल अपार्ट, सब फंसे हुए हैं, मैं कमा लूंगा. बट समवेयर ही गॉट दिस इनपुट और इनसाइट फ्रॉम समवन की बॉस, कुछ होने वाला है, आप ये मत करो. उसने पोजीशन काट ली, एंड हिज लर्निंग फ्रॉम दैट लेसन वाज, बिकॉज व्हाट हैपेंड इन सब्सिक्वेंटली इज, we all know JP Morgan came in, stepped in, bailed out the banks, and the rest is history. The market did not crash, even though everybody was leveraged to the neck. There was no way out. Okay. The main point is, do not bet on an end of the world scenario. ऐसा अगर कोई सिनेरियो आता है जिसमें आपको लगता है कि ये ऐसी हद आ गई है जिसमें सब कुछ डूब जाएगा और मैं ही जीतूंगा, तो इट इज़ बेटर नॉट टू बेट ऑन दैट, क्योंकि ना आप उसमें जीत सकते हो ना आपका कुछ हो सकता है. एंड इन मोस्ट सिनेरियोज द ऑपोजिट हैपन्स. Somebody steps in and saves the day. And that's what happened in 1907. That's what happened in 2009. And to believe that that is not the end outcome, of whatever is going on today is improper unless you get a signal. So wait for the signal. If the signal is not there, जब एक हम लोग सिर्फ सेंटिमेंट और मोमेंटम देख रहे हैं, तो सेंटिमेंट तो एक्सट्रीम पे था ही जनवरी से, तो सेंटिमेंट को क्यों ना माने. और मार्च तक भी आप अगर रुकते, आई थिंक इट्स इन द मंथ ऑफ मे ओनली, ये डेट सीलिंग के पहले यूएस का जो शॉर्ट पोजीशन है S&P फ्यूचर्स में, इट एंडेड अप रीचिंग द हाईएस्ट ऑन रिकॉर्ड, नॉट जस्ट हाईएस्ट तो 6-8 महीने पहले था. 2002 इट वाज 280,000 कॉन्ट्रैक्ट्स आई थिंक बाय डिसम्बर, एंड देन इट हैड रिड्यूस्ड ऑल्सो वंस, and then it went up significantly in the last month to more than, I think, 440,000 contracts cross. That was the previous high, 440. It crossed that also, and then from there short covering has started. Now the position is back to around 240,000 contracts. Okay, from 440, तो almost 2 लाख कॉन्ट्रैक्ट. और दो ही दिन में हुए, क्योंकि 2 हफ्ते में, एक्चुअली 2 दिन नहीं, क्योंकि दिस डेटा इज रिलीज्ड ओनली वंस अ वीक. तो 2 हफ्ते पहले हुआ था और फिर ये वाले हफ्ते में हुआ. बीच में एक हफ्ते देयर वाज नॉट मच रिडक्शन इन पोजीशन, एंड सीधा 90,000 कॉन्ट्रैक्ट्स की शॉर्ट कवरिंग देखी गई S&P फ्यूचर्स में, and still there's a short position of 240,000 contracts in the US. So that is the extent of nervousness. And I have not seen, I'm telling you, I have not seen, I follow a lot of YouTube channels and listen to a lot of different interviews, and I'm disturbed by the amount of people who are just, मतलब my entire YouTube channel watching is gone bad. I don't even feel like opening it. I have never have been in a situation where every interview, every discussion with every person is about the recession and the market falling. ऐसा मुझे याद ही नहीं है कभी कि मैंने एक्सपीरियंस किया हो. It's such a major consensus that this is going to happen, and which is why I'm not going to bet on it, because it's bizarre. मतलब it's so bizarre कि समझ के बाहर है, ऐसा लगेगा कि एज इफ एवरीबडी इज बीन पेड टू से दिस, विच मे नॉट बी ट्रू, बट आई एम जस्ट सेइंग दैट फीलिंग जो आपको आएगी वो ऐसी आएगी कि ऐसा कैसे हो सकता है कि सबके सब, एवरी हेज फंड मैनेजर, एवरीबडी, बारिंग, पहले एक आध कोई होता था, जो कुछ लोग होते थे जो डिफर कर लेते थे, अभी वो लोग भी डिफर नहीं कर पा रहे हैं. So I'm pretty much surprised, that even people who I expect to stand against the crowd are not standing against it right now, and that's how bizarre it is. So data has everybody fooled, and liquidity is working. That is one explanation for the US market. But when it comes to the Indian market, the explanations are very, very different. Now, as long as you have an environment in which things are not getting tighter, uh, the reasons for India's growth cycle have been well known for I think 10, 15 years, and they continue to be. The only change is in how sector participation has changed. Like you had a phase of the 2010s when various economic sectors, which are more core sector related, were not participating, whether it was metals, power, capital goods, infrastructure, realty, all of these sectors were not really participating. Your entire manufacturing was flat. The only thing doing well was BFSI and IT. So it was sort of a defensive market going on between 2009 and 2020. But now you're seeing all of those sectors start to break out. And that means something has changed. You cannot put the entire blame or give the entire credit to only liquidity. Something has changed. Liquidity helps, but it helps in that change factor being exploited or exponentiated in a particular direction, and that is what we are really witnessing. India had had that setup. We had the cleanup, we did the bankruptcy code and all the cleanup that was required. We just need the leeway to move, and as long as you get a phase where the global crisis is contained, then India gets an opportunity to expand and explode on the upside. And I think that's what is happening, that's what has happened, and that is why it's an opportunity not to be missed. And like I said, chartically these things don't just end in a whimper. It's not कि 2 महीने चलेगा फिर खत्म हो जाएगा, मतलब ऐसा होता नहीं है, unless something is terribly wrong, and that terribly wrong is not visible. I'll tell you, even the most as data has come out, most bearish people in the US have backed off on a US recession till 2024 January. So even that gives you 6 months of timeline to see and think and watch how things will change and unfold. And in the meantime, inflation data is going to cool off. Now, why am I talking about these things? None of them are related to India, because this is what the talk is. This is where the fears are coming from. From something else which is not related to India. इंडिया स्टोरी चाहिए तो बहुत मिल जाएगा आपको यूट्यूब पे. डोमेस्टिक जो फंड्स हैं और जो लोग बात करते हैं, they'll give you enough ज्ञान on why you should remain invested. So that I don't need to reiterate. But people are bogged down by fears of something else which is completely bizarre and out of hand. So these are the sectors where the turn has happened. These are the sectors where the boom will continue, and within that, mid and small caps will do exceedingly well, which is always the case. The small companies is where most of the action happens. Good news: 2020-21 has already done the cleanup. We've cleaned up most of the bad actors through underperformance. जो नहीं चल रहा है उसको भूल जाओ. द मार्केट हैज ऑलरेडी टोल्ड यू नहीं चल रहा है, मैंने इसको 80% नीचे रिट्रेसमेंट में पीट दिया है. दैट डजंट मीन इट विल नॉट बाउंस बैक, but that's not where you're going to get your multi-bagger. You may in one or two cases, but not all of them. If there are 10 stocks that have done 80% retracements, one of them may do it, the other 7 will not. So if you're trying to look for 80% retracement stocks to find your next winner of this bull market, then you may be going in the wrong place, or simply getting somewhere where your patience will be tested to the edge, and you don't know whether payback will come or not. And then you'll feel bad about having missed out the strongest parts of the market that were outperforming anyway. So it's a strategy I would not suggest. A strategy I would suggest is run metrics on क्या चला है, क्या perform किया है, पिछले एक साल के बुरे market में भी what did well, and then look at that. Okay, what did better than others, and look at that. And so that will then end up putting you in the right stocks, sectors, and places. And repeating again that the outperformance of mid and small cap stocks, which we are seeing now in the last 2 months, is likely to continue throughout this phase, because that's how it always happens. We saw a pause in that outperformance through 2021-22. If you look at a relative chart or a ratio chart of the Nifty to the mid cap index, you will see it. You see a flattening. In fact, the ratio chart did not even go back to the 2020 highs, which to me for a while was surprising because Nifty made a new all time high. 2020 के हाईज निकाल के 12,000 को निकाल के हम 18,000 पे आ गए, बट मिड कैप का जो रेशियो है वो अभी भी निफ्टी से बहुत नीचे था 2020 से. Okay, so now we are breaking out of that point where it was stuck. Okay, and now we'll probably head towards those highs and beyond, and that is the phase we are in, where smaller stocks really outperform the big ones. But that doesn't mean the big ones don't do well. In the sectors that I just mentioned, the big ones also continue to do well. The only sector which probably is bothering me, which was a winner for me in 2020-21, is the metal sector, which is not yet participating because somewhere you haven't got the final signal of weakening inflation from data, and therefore bond yields and the dollar are not responding yet. And that's why you're not seeing that, even though it looks like we have done a significant retracement in things like gold has retraced 61%, copper has retraced 61%, all that has happened, but they're just not taking off right now, and it is testing your patience. But I do think and believe that it will happen because broadly in my mind, the dollar bull market from 2008 to 2021 should be over, you know, or rather 22. I think DXY peaked in September of 22. So that should be the end of its bull market, and we should be headed into a bear market for the dollar, is how I'm thinking about it. That thesis changes, it would definitely change things because that is one of the reflections of liquidity. But the other reflection of liquidity is actually Bitcoin. Okay, Bitcoin, जो कि I don't know whether as a whether it's a investment recommendation, but एक sentiment indicator के तौर पे बहुत ही अच्छा चलता है, क्योंकि लिक्विडिटी कहीं पे उसमें है, और लिक्विडिटी जहाँ पे है वहाँ पे हमें ये पता चल जाता है कि लोग रिस्क ले रहे हैं कि नहीं ले रहे हैं. एंड स्लोली बाय स्लोली उसका जो कोरिलेशन है वो डॉलर के साथ ही बैठ गया है. जिस तरह गोल्ड का पहले था, बिटकॉइन का बैठ गया है. तो बिटकॉइन एंड डॉलर इंडेक्स आर इन्वर्सली कोरिलेटेड, and similarly with gold. And so somewhere BTC has been outperforming gold, and that's just a fact, because there's no intervention in that, or there is no ownership between banks of that in a big way, and therefore price behavior is very very different. तो उसमें हमने पिछले हफ्ते ही ब्रेकआउट देखा एक कंसोलिडेशन से. इट हैड ऑलरेडी रिट्रेस 61% एंड वी वर वेटिंग फॉर इट टू डू दैट. फॉलिंग चैनल से जैसे उसने ब्रेकआउट दिया, आई टुक दैट एज अ सिग्नल दैट ये जो करेक्टिव फेज है ये टेम्पररी ही होने वाला है मार्केट में, जो कि यूएस मार्केट्स में भी हो रहा है और इवेंचुअली कमोडिटी स्पेस में भी, बिकॉज दे ऑल इनवर्सली रिलेटेड टू द डॉलर. तो जब बिटकॉइन ब्रेकआउट देता है तो इट इज इंडिकेटिंग द डॉलर विल वीकन एंड दैट एवरीथिंग एल्स विल रिफ्लेट, and I've taken that signal at least for the time being. So these are all different things we watch, and it all falls under macro now. And in India specifically, out of the two factors, and this will be my concluding remark, then we can take on questions, is the currency and the bond yields, right? Bond yields have broken out. I've drawn a triangle. I think I've shared it on Twitter also, on both the USD INR and the 10-year GSEC. 10-year GSEC से नीचे की तरफ bond yields टूट चुका है, which was at around I think it was 7.3 or something. Below that we broke down and we've been hanging around 7.1 for some time. But that breakdown means that the downward trend for bond yields in the 10-year GSEC has started. USD INR में सिमिलर चीज़ जो है वो काफ़ी टाइम से दिख रही है, बट द ब्रेकडाउन और ब्रेकआउट हैज़ नॉट हैपेंड, नाइदर ऊपर की तरफ या नीचे की तरफ. तो ऊपर तो 83 का लेवल था, बार बार 4 टाइम्स टच कर चुका है और वहाँ से फेल हो चुका है. नीचे की तरफ वी आर सिटिंग ऑन दैट लेवल राइट नाउ, right at this moment, and at 82, I think it's slightly below 82. It's come up a bit. So we are sort of attempting. There are actually two trend lines. एक को हमने तोड़ दिया है, but broadly people will want to break both. So first one was close to 82, which we are sort of broken below and hanging on. The other one is at around 81.64, और 81.64 के जस्ट नीचे 81.50 पे वीकली एवरेज भी है. द 40 वीक एवरेज विल कम इन देयर. सो समवेयर इफ यू ब्रेक 81.50 डेली एंड वीकली बेसिस पे, आई थिंक द USD INR would also confirm the weak dollar scenario, or a scenario where the rupee starts to strengthen, and that will probably enhance the bullishness that people have in their minds based on currency. So these are two macro factors which will drive most of the thinking. At least it drives most of my thinking. I just look at these two and say whether things are intact or not. And so far, at least bond yield signaled that early, and the market has taken that cue. USD INR 83 knee cross kar raha hai, and that itself, I think market is taking that cue. But I would really want 8150 to break, because then that would become a confirmed situation. So that's it for me in my overall wrap up of what I think and see going on from here forward. This bull run continues into the end of 2023 for no doubt, maybe into early 24. Then we may see some consolidation in the first quarter of 24. Like I said, a lot of people from a US perspective expect the US recession to hit somewhere around Jan of 24. Again, based on the tightening scenario, that if they keep things tight for long enough, this overheated US overheated economy will eventually slow down. That is the hope that they are sitting on. In the meantime, missing out on what is happening in markets in general. But it's a long period. जून से लेकर दिसंबर तक हम लोग शांति से ऐसे बैठ तो नहीं सकते. And India, if it's a beneficiary in general, if nothing bad is happening, then good will happen, and that's the real call. So we'll take it from here to there. We can of course review. There's a lot of months in between to keep reviewing the situation, how it is unfolding. Things can even change. What people expect will happen today may not even happen tomorrow. Something will change, and so we'll be able to review that change as it develops. But as of now, we've seen a breakout, to a new high, new all-time high. The final breakout for the Nifty, of course, will be above 19,000 and 30, 40 when it crosses that trend line of the highs, which, like I said, the Nifty 500 has already done. The mid caps have already done. So that's with that, I'm going to move on to taking questions for the next half an hour, 40 minutes, and that should then help wrap up this session. So, anybody who wants to ask questions can put in a request. I see 4 requests right now, so I will send out speaker invites. You can accept it and shoot your questions. Saurabh,
हेलो रोहित जी,
हाय.
आवाज आ रहा है सर?
बिल्कुल आ रहा है.
हाँ सर, मैंने आपका एक प्रीवियस एनालिसिस देखा था जिसमें आपने यूएसडी आईएनआर और निफ्टी का इंटर मार्केट कोरिलेशन डाला था, डाइवर्जेंस. यू हैड सेड कि जब भी निफ्टी का जो रिलेशन ऊपर जा रहा है और डॉलर रुपए भी ऊपर जा रहा है तो वो टिकता है, बट जो इनवर्स रहता है वो ज्यादा दिन नहीं टिकता. तो इस बार भी ऐसा लग रहा है कि निफ्टी इज गोइंग अप बट यूएसडी आईएनआर इज ट्रेडिंग इन अ फ्लैट जोन.
या
तो उसके ऊपर क्या कहना है आपका?
सो जब एक चीज दूसरे को कंफर्म नहीं करती है, देयर इज ऑलवेज अ रिस्क ऑफ वन ऑफ देम बीइंग रॉन्ग, एंड वी ट्राई टू मेक दैट जजमेंट कि कौन सा गलत है,
ओके.
करेंसी गलत है कि निफ्टी गलत है. आई एम ट्राइंग टू मेक अ जजमेंट दैट करेंसी गलत है एट दिस
ओके.
पॉइंट ऑफ टाइम. क्योंकि अगर इक्विटी तेजी में है तो यूएसडी एनआर को लॉजिकली 82 81 के नीचे निकल जाना चाहिए था, बट इट इज डूइंग सो वेरी वेरी स्लोली. अभी क्या है, ये अगर ट्राइंगल पैटर्न नहीं बना होता तो उस पर हम फोकस नहीं करते, शायद नियर टर्म हाइज और लोज के डाइवर्जेंस के हिसाब से इस व्यू को ले लेते.
ओके.
बट राइट नाउ सी करेंसी बढ़ भी नहीं रहा है. हम सी देयर आर टू थिंग्स टू इट. आप एक तो है कि मैं 5 डेज का पैटर्न अगर देखूं, और एक चीज़ है कि मैं 6 महीने का पैटर्न देखूं, है ना. 6 महीने का पैटर्न देखूंगा तो वो ट्राइंगल दिखेगा जो मैं बोल रहा हूँ, 83
ओके.
और
यस
82
यस
के बीच में ऊपर नीचे चल रहा है, बट उसमें तो
यस
मंदी भी हुई है और तेजी भी हुई है.
यस
सो
बोथ
देयर
सर.
इज नो डायरेक्शनल इंडिकेशन इन दैट ब्रॉडली स्पीकिंग.
यस
बट शॉर्ट टर्म में जब हम लोग देखते हैं तो एज द मार्केट हैज गॉन अप, यूएसडी एनआर हैज रिसेंटली हैज कम डाउन,
यस यस हाई से तो कम है
बट
बट
इट इज नॉट फॉलिंग. अभी 5
या
दिनों से नहीं गिर रहा है.
यस
सो जब
यस
5 दिनों से नहीं गिर रहा है, देन इट डज गिव अस अ चांस टू थिंक कि भाई अगर बाजार अटकेगा तो क्या करेंसी वापस एक बार ऊपर रिट्रेस करेगा क्या.
यस यस
बट अगेन दैट डिडंट हैपन बिकॉज मार्केट हैज रन अवे टू अ न्यू हाई.
यस
So I would want to see कि करेंसी starts to strengthen again. अभी तक तो नहीं हुआ है.
यस
और नहीं होगा, अगर सोचो कि नहीं हो रहा है तो yes, it will create at some point, it will create a doubt in the mind कि ये false move है कि नहीं.
ओके. Okay, because like I was checking the data is good, like FIS का continuous buying चल रहा है मई जून से अच्छा पॉजिटिव है, बट एक प्रॉब्लम है कि आरबीआई अपना फॉरवर्ड बुक स्पीड से बढ़ा रहा है. दैट्स द फियर दैट आरबीआई इज ड्राइंग लक्ष्मण रेखा लाइक नीचे के लेवल पे, लाइक 8150 8160 बहुत बार प्रोटेक्ट किया, और आरबीआई का फॉरवर्ड बुक भी दिख रहा है उसके बुलेटिन में कि वो बढ़ा रहा है पोजीशन. तो दैट इज द वन रिस्क. एंड अदर वो चाइनीज करेंसी और येन, ये दोनों करेंसी ज्यादा स्पीड से डेप्रिशिएट हो रहे हैं, तो इंडिया का ट्रेड डेफिसिट भी बढ़ सकता है, क्योंकि उनकी करेंसी चीप लगेगा तो अपना इंपोर्ट्स भी बढ़ जाते हैं इनडायरेक्टली.
करेक्ट. ये जो आपने सेकंड चीज बोली ना, दैट इज मोर रेलिवेंट, क्योंकि
या
इवन ब्राजील, सो जितने ये करेंसीज हैं उन्होंने अपना करेंसी सॉर्ट ऑफ वीक ही रखा है, बहुत ज़्यादा स्ट्रांग नहीं होने दिया है. तो जब सब कंट्रीज अपनी करेंसीज को स्ट्रांग नहीं होने दे रहे हैं, तो रुपी को भी हम अगर स्ट्रांग होने देंगे तो हमारा कॉम्पिटिटिव एडवांटेज कहीं पे अफेक्ट होता है. दैट कुड बी वन ऑफ द रीजंस बिहाइंड इट एज वेल.
यस यस. ओके सर, थैंक यू.
थैंक यू. ख्याति.
Hi, Rohit sir. So good to hear you. Just wanted to know your views on the current couple of data points that have come out currently. First, from the domestic point of view, the current account deficit numbers that came up, contradictory signals there. Net of gold, I think it's a good, it's a declined year on year, Q on Q as well. But there is also a decline in investments, foreign investments. So how do you kind of read that?
So India's CAD has always been financed through FPI flows and FDI flows, but more FPI than FDI historically. But FDI also started to do well in the last several years. So that has just been always been the case. So when you were getting a lot of FI outflows last year, it was a cause of concern, and we are aware. RBI had to jump in and sell almost $100 billion. We all know now last year. So that was a situation when FIF flows were not there. Now we are starting to see FIF flows. So that sort of balances or finances your CAD issue. So CAD issue has always been there. We've always had a current account deficit. Sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less. The thing is, are we able to finance it with currency flows from other sources? If yes, then currency is sort of stable. If not, then we get into trouble.
Okay. And you did mention that indexes or sectors which have been non-performing or been stagnant and gone through a significant 10, 15, 13 year uh, you know
Consolidation.
consolidation, and specifically metals and commodities and
Power.
all economy stocks where
Correct.
manufacturing, some of us who been there for a long time will know some names, and stay off it just because what experiences have happened in the past, but they're really back in form. Specifically PSUs and metals are two sectors that people kind of run away from, even if you want to start a conversation. I have been very pro both those sectors, like, I think around 2020-ish. So again, not trying to get a confirmation, but yeah, even I feel the frustration on the metals part, and more so, I don't know exactly what trigger or what stars need to be aligned now to kind of get that going. But on the manufacturing infra and specifically PSU space, I think the defense and all of that has really, really done well. One
So
sector.
power and capital goods also I will add to that list, because those are also sectors that have broken out from 10-year ranges and they're actually doing well. All the entire capital goods sector has run up in the last quarter, and even in power, you look across the board, whether it's some of them are PSUs like NTPC or REC and so on, but some are non-PSUs also. So power has done well, capital goods, a lot of it has done well. Metals is the only odd guy, I think, within that segment, which is not at all participating as of now.
Okay, so that's, I think, what we learned from the past. talking about the future, how new technologies, how new ways of doing business, how artificial intelligence, how space technology, everything is going to change the future. If you look from a futuristic perspective, also not completely on the tech side. I think even on the old economy side, like I was just going through the PLI textile PLI scheme, and I do work in related businesses. So that's something that I find interesting. Absolutely dominant sector, nothing happening, not many changes that actually happened on the ground. But yeah, looks like a very very long sleeping giant might just wake up. So have you been reading, or have any idea on textile sector?
Interesting space, and since I spent so much time at Sharekhan, they recently released a report recommending a handful of stocks in textiles also. So surely there is something happening there. Uh, that's for sure. Would it be? I mean, would need to think a little deeper in terms of what extent of move will happen. But in a bull market, everything is going to participate. So the judgment is only of extent of outperformance. Will it be a multi-bagger or will it be a market performer? That is the only thought that comes to mind when you think about these things.
Okay, so in a sector that's not yet really taken off, or a very very nascent stage, like for example green energy. So would you recommend the players, or you would recommend the pick and shovel ones? I think green energy, I'm sticking to basically the pick and shovel ones, the ones who will eventually, the suppliers who will benefit. Or same way textiles, you have any idea what would be ancillary businesses that would benefit? Any sectors like that, like chemical maybe?
So actually, see both of these areas. At least textile has been an area that I've really not looked at.
Okay.
Okay. In the green energy space, it is very, very mixed. Yes, you're right. You like to look at different supplies or different components. I mean, even metals, like say, for example, copper is one major component, or you would want to look at somebody who's producing something. So, yes, I agree on the green energy side.
Okay, I've been reading up a lot on the space technology and our space policy. I think it got discussed around recently, also with the US visit and all of that. So,
Hmm.
but even before that, we have some really interesting legislations around the space program, which also has implications on broadband, on telecom, because they're talking about low Earth orbit and, commercial satellites and all of that. Dhruva technology is one thing that stands out, but it's unfortunately not listed. Uh, Also, some interesting things being done by Avintel, but they do have a past. So on that space, we have an IPO coming up. So any kind of views on that, the drone one?
I have not thought about it, frankly. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
all right. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Anupama.
Yeah, hi sir.
Hi. Anupama, I think you need to unmute again because I think some kind of an auto mute happened.
Yeah,
Yeah,
sir.
go on.
Somehow by host. Yeah.
Hmm.
So I was saying, sir, do you think so the market will fall likely, and once again rally maybe after election next year, like a
इतना लंबा
continuous
मैंने
bull run?
थोड़ी सुना है कितना सुना आपने
Sir, I joined kind of later, sir.
मैं 50 मिनट से बोल रहा हूँ और आप मुझे सवाल पूछ रहे हो बच्चा किधर है वैसा स्टोरी है ये
नहीं, sorry, sir. I will listen to the recording.
I am not bearish on the market. So what kind of a fall are you asking for?
Minute correction, मतलब much more like in 18,000 अभी 19 पे है, maybe market will go sideways from here and then correct.
Correct? How much? No, I don't think. आई एम नॉट एन एक्सपेक्टिंग ऑफ, आई मीन करेक्शन होना था तो शायद पिछले हफ्ते हो जाना था। अब जो ये निकल पड़ा है तो मुझे समझ नहीं रहा है कि करेक्शन आएगा भी कि नहीं।
और सर इंश्योरेंस एज सेक्टर कैसा देखते हैं आप? डू यू थिंक अभी है जनरल और लाइफ दोनों में अलग अलग? You definitely.
Insurance cannot not do well, okay, but whether you own it or not is an individual choice based on what return expectations you have.
Okay, sir.
So,
That will be all.
Rajiv Jha. Rajiv Jha. Okay, Raju.
Yeah, hi Rohit. Rohit, my question is about US GSEC bonds, 10-year yield bonds. So can you throw some light on it, like the falling trend line breakout and the level which it is at right now?
On my chart, there is no falling trend line breakout. If I look at the US 10-year NYSE date chart, okay, it peaked in October at around 4.28%. After that, it made a lower top in March of around 4.07%, and that falling trend line currently is placed at 3.87, and we are currently at 3.74. So we are below the breakout point. We haven't broken out. And if you ask me, I don't think we'll break out. Most probably, we're going to roll over from here to the downside. So bond market.
So which is the one you are referring to? I am referring to TVC. Which is the one you are referring
to? No, I am
to?
looking at the US 10-year note yield. I'm looking at the yield chart.
Okay, I'm looking at the 10-year government bond yield, TVC. US only, but TVC. Okay, so there is a symbol difference.
So you are looking at TradingView. I'm looking at it on investing.com. On TradingView.
Yeah, I'm looking at TradingView.
Also, I don't think there will be a breakout. See.
Oh, there is.
There won't be. I have that also on my chart. See.
In case you can have a watch.
Yeah. So see, I'm looking at US government bond 10-year TVC. Okay.
Yeah.
Now.
So if you see from 88, the falling trend line.
From the which top are you taking पे है? I'm only looking at from October 2022.
Okay, I'm looking at from 30-year perspective.
30-year perspective का मैं क्या करूँगा?
Fine, even if we look for the last from 2010, it's yet to break out.
देखो 30-year का ब्रेकआउट लगा के ना कोई फायदा नहीं है क्योंकि you don't know what will happen in the next 6 months.
Okay, so how do you see it like for the last 2018? Okay, 5 years.
See, 2020 में bond yields were near zero. Okay, वहाँ से ऊपर आया है.
Right.
Okay. मैं कह रहा हूँ कि वहाँ से जो ऊपर आया वो टॉप हो गया.
Okay, so that is effectively 4.5 around. Okay.
अब इसका आप रिट्रेसमेंट भी ले लो. अगर से योर 30-year चार्ट इज करेक्ट कि ये बहुत बड़ा ब्रेकआउट है तो वेव 1 मार्क कर लो. वेव 2 61% रिट्रेस कर लेगा. मर गए.
No, I don't work on waves.
No, मैं वेव नहीं मतलब मैं पुल बैक कह रहा हूँ ना. कुछ भी नाम दे दो ना उसको. वेव इज जस्ट अ वर्ड. अगर कोई चीज ऊपर की तरफ उछली है, एक तरफ उछल ली है 0 से 4.8 तक उछल ली, 30-year ट्रेंड लाइन तोड़ दी और वहां पे अगर टॉप होता है तो वो रिट्रेसमेंट तो मारेगा 50-60%. इतना तो बोल सकते हैं. वेव गया भाड़ में.
Agreed.
तो 60% रिट्रेसमेंट में भी वो 1.5% तक आ जाएगा.
So अगर 4.5 के ऊपर जाता है then it is a cause of concern,
yes.
Right? And you already mentioned about USD INR, and that alarm would be around 85 or 83.8.
हाँ 83-20 is the breakout I think. उसके बाद अलार्म ही है.
Alarm है, right? And what is the extent we are looking at? 95.
वो होने के बाद मैं बताऊंगा. आप कर दो ना पहले.
Right, पहले तो होना पड़ेगा. Thank you so much. Cheers.
सुमित।
हाँ रोहित जी नमस्कार।
नमस्कार
सर ये सिल्वर पे कुछ व्यू बता सकते हैं सर?
सिल्वर पे व्यू, सी सिल्वर
जैसे क्रूड ने आज काफी अच्छा रिबाउंड दिया है, आज मल्टीपल लोज बना के 3 बार लो बना के फिर
क्रूड ने तो कई बार अच्छा रिवर्सल दिया और फिर भी
हाँ
अटक जाता है। सो वो तो
आज मतलब कई दिनों बाद
कहानी
मैंने
अलग है।
देखा है कि आज 3 बार ये डे के नीचे आया और थर्ड टाइम से फिर एकदम से रिबाउंड करके ऊपर
सी मैंने ना सिल्वर पे 61% रिट्रेसमेंट का लेवल लगाया है।
जी।
तो ये 61% रिट्रेसमेंट करीब 1905 पे आता है।
सिल्वर सर
सॉरी गोल्ड बोल गया मैं।
गोल्ड बोल गया।
तो सिल्वर पे भी जो अभी रिसेंट लो बनाया है, दैट इज आई थिंक व्हाट इज द लो, 22.11। आई थिंक 22 के आसपास 61% रिट्रेसमेंट है, $22।
हाँ 22.11 के बाद ये फिर रिट्रेस होकर 23 पॉइंट कुछ तक गया था, फिर वहां से फिर वापस आया।
करेक्ट। तो 22 के जब तक नीचे नहीं है तब तक इट इज अ बॉटम केस ऑफ हायर बॉटम ओनली।
ओके क्योंकि 23-25 पे बताते हैं ना रेजिस्टेंस है काफी इसका, तो वहां से वो लगभग वहीं से टच करके फिर वापस हो गया।
सिल्वर आपको पता है ना, जब चालू होगा ना तो उसका कोई रेजिस्टेंस नहीं होने वाला है।
अच्छा
हिस्ट्री है, मतलब मैं हिस्ट्री बता रहा हूँ, हिस्ट्री उसका वैसे ही है। जब गिरता है सब लोग रेजिस्टेंस ढूंढते हैं और जब शुरू हो जाता है तो सब रेजिस्टेंस निकल जाते हैं।
हाँ बीच में अभी लास्ट मंथ 78,000 गया था एकदम अनएक्सपेक्टेडली, और उसके बाद एकदम से फिर डाउन भी वैसे ही हुआ। तो अभी मतलब ये है कि 22 और 23 के बीच में ही देखना है, मतलब ब्रेकआउट रेंज है दोनों, नीचे की
नहीं,
और ऊपर की।
22 इज द 61% रिट्रेसमेंट सपोर्ट है वो।
ओके
वहां से ऊपर जाने का ज्यादा चांस होना चाहिए। जब तक वो टूटेगा नहीं, आई वुड थिंक कि इट इज अ बॉटम एट 22।
ओके और ऊपर के लेवल में ब्रेकआउट कहाँ पे है, मतलब कि अगर जहाँ से एड ऑन किया जा सके फिर?
अरे वो तो सी, आप मुझे अभी पूछोगे कहाँ पे ऐड ऑन करो तो मैं जवाब नहीं दूंगा,
नहीं टेक्निकल ओनली ऑन टेक्निकल चार्ट्स के बेस के ऊपर,
क्योंकि I should add this as questions get wider and wider. We do not give advice on buying and selling.
ओके
Okay, levels are in its place, trend readings are fine. We don't want to tell you कि इधर ले लो या इधर बेच लो।
ओके राइट, ठीक है थैंक यू।
Saurabh, your hand is showing again.
Yeah, okay, thank you sir. Sir, so question is this India VIX is currently like 10.8 something or below 11. So when this will increase the volatility? And as you said, like you are bullish on the market, so generally VIX melts in the up move. It's rare chances that VIX increase in the fears up move. So what's your take on that?
India VIX you're talking about?
Yeah, India VIX and the overall option pricing.
So it can be a little tricky because when you're in a bull market, sometimes VIX can be stuck in a range for a long period of time. अब ये काफ़ी कम तो आ गया है, 8 तक भी एक दिन स्पाइक दिया था, बट अगर मार्केट तेज रहेगा ये 8 और 10 या 11 के बीच में ऊपर नीचे उछल भी सकता है. इट कैन स्टे इन दैट रेंज फॉर अ प्रोलॉन्ग्ड पीरियड ऑफ टाइम. So you cannot always make a prediction only based on VIX.
Yeah, and so means like the next year the general election, yeah, market can stay bullish, but in bull market also VIX can rise before election, like
Definitely
it
it
can
will
go to
rise
13,
because
14,
at that
15.
time, in the 2 months prior to election, VIX always goes up because it starts to price in the volatility related to the event.
Okay, sir, thank you.
Priyank?
Hello.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sir, I want to know Regarding this underperformance of IT stocks, do you see that it is a long haul that IT will not be able to perform for the next 6 to 8 months? Will it be a drag for the sector for a longer period of time? I
I
wanted your views on that.
I do think so. They will perform, but they will be poor performers, except for maybe some mid cap IT names. क्या हो गया? I think he got dropped out. Our just world.
Hello.
Yes.
Hi, Rohit sir.
Hi.
So I want to know, the pattern that is forming on 19,035. It's an ending diagonal. So, what's your view on that particular thing?
I don't think it's an ending diagonal.
Okay. But isn't in the Elliott wave all the patterns ending at 5 on 19035?
Sorry, I didn't get your question.
19035 is the fifth number for the Elliott wave, right? On wave pattern.
No, not on my chart.
Okay. Fine. Okay. Thank you.
A viral.
Yes, Rohit sir, good evening.
Good evening.
Thanks for hosting this space. So I have just two quick questions. One is the big banks have not participated in the recent rally. So how do you see them going forward? And the NBFCs like Equitas, Arman, and Ujjivan have done pretty well. So how do you see, in general, the space going forward? And one more small question is that which particular sector you feel presently is reasonably valued and there is a scope to go ahead? Yeah, that would be all.
So by big banks, I believe you mean things like HDFC Bank, which in the
Correct,
last
sir. HDFC,
which in the
Kotak, and
last 10
SBI.
days has moved up from a low of 1580 to now 1676, around 100 rupees. It has moved up. But
Hanji, sir. I'm just talking about like next 6 months
correct.
to
So
1 year time
from a
frame kind
six
of.
month basis, it has not moved much. But it has in general been slowly rising. So what is going to happen here? See, this is all about performing or outperforming and underperforming. Uh, Banks cannot not participate in a bull market because finally they are the credit lenders and providers of finance and money to an economy. So they will see credit growth and you will see some earnings growth because of that, and therefore banks will do well. There's no second thought about it. But the bigger the bank, the more contained and fixed its growth rate is. And the smaller ones, sometimes if they are just growing, they can sometimes do better than the bigger ones. That has always been the case. So if you go back to an Axis
Agree.
Bank when it was only having a dozen branches in 2003, it has much greater potential than when it has hundreds of branches. And so that's just very
Agree.
broad way of thinking about it. So they'll all do well, but will the large banks outperform something else? That becomes a separately completely different question. And within then the large banks, you might find that one of them is doing better than many of the others, and then I would focus my attention on that. Like I think sometime back I was on some of the channels and that the same question was coming up. I said, look at the last 6 months, which is the one bank out of the private banks which is doing well, and the answer is ICICI Bank, the only one that was going up.
Correct.
So sort of that's a way to, so goes back to what I said in the beginning, that do some kind of performance analysis. In some sectors, you might just want to pick the one winner of that sector, and in some cases, you might just want to be with the winning sectors in general against others. You don't want to be in everything. So same cases with large banks and small banks. I mean, you don't want to be in every large bank. You can pick one which you like, or which is
Hanji,
doing
got
better
that.
in the sector.
Roger, sir. And so, what about these spaces like the small NBFCs, Equita, Sarman, and Ujjivan party abhi baki hai, or there's still lot
The
to go?
answer is
Yeah.
the same. Na. See, in a expanding economy, they will all do well. They will all find their space and do something. Growth will happen because they are all going to capture demand somewhere or the other, right? So,
Yeah, got
yeah,
that, sir. Thanks a
yeah.
lot. And so, any particular sector which you are eyeing has got like reasonably valued and still long way to go in next 2 years, 1 to 2 years time frame horizon, like 2024 till
The very same ones. I mean, I mentioned them earlier, whether it's capital goods, defense, uh, power, metals. It's going to be, and some of the, and in mid caps, look at some of the manufacturing names. It's going to remain there. In pharma, it will be very, very stock specific and bottom up. Just like you asked in banks, it will not be like owning everything. So yeah, but those are the broad, I think, main sectors.
yeah, got that, sir. Like I mean, I was playing the mining part, the iron pellets, the uh, cost is going high, so the minings is looking interesting to me at least. Anyways, thanks a lot for your info,
Thank
sir.
you. Varun.
Hi,
Right.
sir. Sir, actually, I have like two questions. Okay, so first one is like, what's your view on CNH Reality Index? Okay, it's gonna take out like 2010 highs or something. So every time it is going to break out, never happens, right? And as a like whole sector, and the ancillaries something like the plywood or something like that, or the ceramic or hinware kind of companies goes up, but the index never goes up, right? So do you think this time it will happen or not?
No, I do think the reality sector started to participate with a lag. The only thing is, I don't expect it to do the kind of things it did in the 2000 to 2010 cycle, which was like a discovery phase for reality, where a lot of companies were first time being discovered or revalued from almost zero, where they had not declared assets and suddenly they were declaring land banks and the market was putting a valuation to that. So that was like a crazy phase. I don't think that kind of a phase will happen, but reality in general does start doing better from here. It's already started, and your question that will the reality index take out the 2010 highs, I think it will.
So you will play with Godrej, Shobha kind of stocks or like ancillary
I don't
sectors,
want to
sir?
mention any particular stock.
You basically go with developers or ancillaries?
I think large developers are the easier way to go.
So one more question. So you told in today's CNN interview, right? On you are bullish on auto. You're turning bullish on
Very
auto. You
short term.
go
That was a
by.
very short term observation based on our Dow theory scanner, that banks and autos were showing up in the last 2 days of market advance. So possibly they would cause the index to go up. That is what was the analysis.
So I mean, you think it's gonna be like super bull run in auto? Like it haven't happened in like so long, right? In most of the big name auto companies. So you will go by big players or ancillaries on this one auto.
So again, I have liked big players only. I have not studied ancillaries, and this has to do with, see, this has to do with individual bias also, and that remember, as a human being, I cannot study every sector. Like somebody asked me textiles earlier or chemicals. Chemicals did so well between in the last decade, but I was not on top of it. Because it's not a sector I'm able to study. So similarly, within autos, I have actually not spent time on auto ancillaries, so it's not an area I understand. But in general, autos are showing very good momentum as of now.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Mitesh.
Hi Rohit, Nitesh here.
Hi.
Rohit, you were just explaining about your last para of your explanation of the whole thing about metal sector. saying that because inflation has not actually shown that it is really going down and correlation with the dollar, I really could not understand much of it that time. Something,
Okay.
or maybe you can stand a bit more.
See, broadly, what does my metal sector follow? We can either say, oh, well, if there is demand from construction or power, those are areas which metals will get consumed. But the other thing which has become a driver is essentially been the impact of liquidity on dollar. Okay, so whenever you have a dollar bull market, you get commodity prices coming down, which is disinflationary. And whenever you have a dollar bear market, you see commodity prices rising, which is inflationary. Now, inflationary doesn't always mean that you get a lot of inflation in terms of CPI and so on, because you had a commodity bull market from 2000 to 2008, in which oil went from, in 1999 or 98, it had reached $8, and by 2008 it was $136. But even then you didn't have double digit inflation. So it's also about what speed with which prices are rising, and whether there is a inflation expectation at the ground level across, which means in producer prices and so on. So a lot of misreading and misrelating is done by simply looking at commodities. But having said that, since you did have double digit inflation in 2021, the current theme is raise rates and get these commodity prices down. And so sort of that has affected oil and affected the rest of the commodities pack. Now, they haven't crashed, but they have retraced. I mean, you've seen oil retrace almost 50%. It didn't touch 61% yet, which would be closer to $65, $62. Copper did touch 61% sometime last year. But from there, they are trying to recover, but we are not seeing a meaningful rally yet. Why aren't we seeing that? Is because it goes back to the dollar. Is the dollar falling? Well, it did fall initially in the first quarter of this year, but then after that, it's recently been bouncing back. Now, while all that is happening, people also start looking at interest rates. That, see, they were raising rates to bring down these commodity prices. So when are they going to start cutting rates? And even though commodity prices have come down, uh, the inflation numbers are not coming down, and therefore the expectation of interest rates coming down is still not showing up. Bond yields, as we were discussing some time back, are still at 3.7%. They should have fallen more, but they aren't, because the data is not yet reflecting what we are seeing in commodity prices. So, because of that data not reflecting it, the dollar is not falling that fast, or even when the dollar is falling, you're not seeing a runaway move in commodities, because uh, the expectation whether rate cuts will happen or not sooner or not is holding it back.
Yeah. Mhm. Yeah, because with the last couple of questions back, somebody asked about the USD and or the USD INR, and we were looking at a breakout about 83, and expectation was around about 85.
Yeah.
Uh, I thought we got disconnected. So the expectation was all the way up to 85 or maybe above. So does that really mean that metals will not turn around till we don't see a breakdown? Because I've been looking at DXY chart also. They have been moving a lot sideways or just consolidating between that 103, 102 range
Correct.
for a very long time.
Yeah, so you really need
But on
that
the
breakdown.
weekly
You
chart,
need the DXY to start falling below 100. You need bond yields to fall below maybe 3.2% or something like that. Now, when you see that kind of a thing, then you'll start seeing a much more sustained rally in commodity prices. Right now, what is happening is you get a slight bump up and then they fall. Now, even say you may see some stability in oil and copper, but you go and look at something like aluminium. It was making new lows even last week, even in the last 3 days.
right?
And so you're not seeing that strength in aluminium, zinc, nickel. So other base metals are still continuing to fall, even though copper looks like it has stabilized. And so that stability is not coming yet.
Mm-hmm. So basically, a close watch on the USD INR and the DXY together with the bond yields can actually give a brighter or maybe a better
Yeah,
picture. The moment you see them breaking down a little, because what happens is the moment they break down a day, the very next day it starts moving up back.
yeah.
There is something going wrong. मतलब, we are not able to understand the movement.
Hmm.
So just wanted to take your overall view, but I think you are right. It is the same scenario everybody is thinking of.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Thank
Thank
you.
you. GP.
Hi Rohitji. I have two specific questions. The one is regarding the HDFC Bank and HDFC merger, where it's going to happen in July 2nd or 3rd week. And then SEBI asked mutual funds to reduce its exposure to below 10%, where some of the mutual funds have more than 10%. So will it affect the share price of the HDFC Bank? And then is it right way to wait for it to buy at lower prices? That's my first one. And the second one is about this renewables theme. I know what, as a renewable energy engineer, I know what India is capable of if you see it a long term. So I just want to ask your views on how renewable sweet theme will do this year. Maybe if possible, I'm slightly bullish on this stock called Borosil Renewables, which is both semiconductor sort of renewables company. What do you think? What's your views on these questions? Thank you.
All your questions are stock specific. Usually when some event is happening like an M&A, it can things go both ways. Sometimes you just want the event to be behind and discounted, but simultaneously we also keep watching price momentum. I mean, while the prices were falling, we start thinking about all these factors. ये होगा तो क्या होगा, ये होगा तो क्या होगा. अभी फैक्ट ये है कि लास्ट वीक से HDFC बैंक broke out above the averages and is up 100 rupees. Now suddenly it looks different. It looks like prices moving up even though all these news expectations were there. So somewhere things get discounted also. You have to, somewhere we pay attention to prices. If I look at something like HDFC Bank's chart, it had taken support on the 40-week average 2 weeks ago, and it didn't break that, and so the technical situation changed. So I really don't know whether these events which you're talking about are already discounted, which is what the chart is showing, or whether they will still have any pending impact in future. I don't know how to think about that. Baki renewables are a great place to be. You're mentioning specific stock. I don't want to say. I've looked at it. It has a good long-term, chart setup. It did really well in 2021. After that, it's seen some retracement also, but it started picking up recently. So looks fine. Like the segment, but I'm not making any recommendation for any particular stock.
No, that's fine. That's great. Thank you. Thank you so much for your insights.
Rajiv Jha. VB.
Hi,
Hi.
Rohit. Good evening.
Hi, good evening.
So, just had a couple of questions. So, see, from a long-term portfolio standpoint, right? Would it actually make sense to move monies from, let's say, large caps to mid and small caps, given the rally both the indices have done year to date?
So there is to some extent a capability question in being able to filter out and manage risk in ownership of mid caps. If you think you have the capability to do that, the answer would be yes, because clearly that segment is going to outperform. I would not mind having a larger allocation to stocks that are in the mid and small cap space relative to large caps.
Okay. So the other question was on. I think I missed out. I think the gentleman earlier had asked the same question. So your view on large cap IT? Any is
I
you
don't.
seeing?
I'm not so keen on IT, especially large cap, because right now they are very lethargic. I think only some of the mid cap IT names probably do well. And again there I'll look at what is performing. So if I just run a scan, I'll in a list, like we recently just ran a scan on a dozen of stocks, and there was only one stock of IT which showed up on that in terms of what is holding up. So you do something like that, you might find one something which is holding out. But otherwise, and that's mostly in the mid IT area. I think the large IT is going to struggle. Usually, I think even in between 2000 2008, when the dollar rupee was strengthening, large cap IT was really underperforming during that phase. It did really well in the previous phase, and similarly, it's done well. In the 2010s, or more importantly in 2021. I think that was one unusual phase where IT did exceedingly well in India. It didn't do that well even in the past decade. But I'm not so sure whether that same performance can be repeated in large cap.
Thank you, Rohit.
Ruchi.
Thank you, Rohit sir, for giving me the opportunity to speak. Uh, so my so I understand that you are bullish in the market. So I would like to understand: is there any major correction that you foresee until 18,000 or 17,500 or below? And if you see, then till what time can we expect that? So it is always better to invest when there's a panic in the market.
You're right.
So
My answer to you is I'm sorry you missed the panic in March.
yeah, I invested. So its market is at
So the beauty
19,000.
about market is that it doesn't create a panic every day. And for a panic, you need somebody to sell. Now, if I bought into the panic in March, I'm not going to be the one selling to you. So you really need to create. So getting a panic is not easy, and especially when sentiment is skewed, it doesn't easily happen. So anyway, coming back to my chart setup, what I mentioned also in my talk earlier is that I don't see. I mean, there was a chance of a correction last week when it fell for 2 days and it came back to 18,700. If it had broken 18,700, we might have been lucky to get a pullback to 18,000 or something like that. Then that could have been my best case scenario correction. You fall to 18,000. Now that you've taken support at 18,700 and gone to a new all-time high, I have doubts that that will happen. You might not get a meaningful correction now, even all the way to 20,000. So I am not really waiting for a correction.
Okay, sir. And I'm not very sure if you would be able to answer it. Uh, like it would be a specific one. I'm not very sure. Is it advisable to invest in IT index or ITBs? I understand that you are not uh, bullish on IT, except some mid cap. But it is it advisable to invest in IT Bs?
So what I said is that, see, in general, you've seen a lot of selling in IT. Okay, and then we are
Yeah,
saying market will go up. So usually if the market goes up, IT will do well. There is no doubt about that. The difference is only whether it performs better than something else. Will A do better than B or B do better than C? So if somebody is
understand.
okay with a 10-15% CAGR, he doesn't mind being in something. But suddenly, if one starts feeling like, earlier, someone asked me, should I have more mid caps? Now, if you're looking for multi baggers, then you'll have to go into that space. So it's all a choice of return versus risk. So if you are okay with a lower rate of return, but you want to play it safe, you might not mind being in large cap IT also.
I get your point,
Yeah.
sir. Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Atul.
Yeah, hello. Hi, Rohit. Good evening.
Good evening.
Rohit, first of all, congratulations to you and your team. Strike is definitely shaping up good.
Thank you.
One request, if you can put together some more videos, to understand how better we can use the
Yeah, it
platform.
is in the pipeline. We've put out very few, I think, under the help section. What we are going to be doing, because the team is still busy on adding those new modules. Like by this weekend, we are hoping to add the futures and options module. Then we have a fundamental module in the next 2 weeks. So the thing is, because of that, they've not been able to get themselves into doing what you're asking for. But it is in the pipeline. They'll be doing lots of videos both online and specifically on the platform for educating on each section. So that is coming. In fact, each section will have a video there to explain how it works.
Wonderful, wonderful. Yeah, because some of the features are actually interconnected, so one gets a little confused
Correct.
when using.
Correct, I get you.
Great. Okay. Yeah. So, and another quick question to you is: you mentioned, that one needs to look at, sectors which did well, will be, repeating. I mean, history, if not repeated, rhymes. So my query is that, assuming 2020 being the starting point and till 21 being the first leg, should we look at the sectors which did good in that leg, or the sectors which showed resilience in the second leg, which is like the consolidation or let's say the correction phase?
So the ones which held out during the corrective phase, which is 2021-22, they actually should get special attention. Okay. Because they really held out, and that is where your defense and all come. In fact, even autos, when the market was falling in July of 2022, the auto sector was still going up against the market. So, and similarly, there are even individual stocks, right? We've seen things like Indian Hotels, ITC. I'm taking some names that actually did well in that phase when the market was falling. So, stocks that did well against the market do get special attention. And then there are the others, which is very broad. That okay, these are the sectors that have come out of their multi-year ranges that should in general do well.
Okay. So now it makes sense why you are more bullish or looking more favorably towards let's say infra, capital goods and
Defense,
power. In comparison to IT,
yes,
so to say, or pharma. Okay, makes sense. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Maverick.
So, what is your view on steel stocks?
Steel
stocks.
I am positive from a 1 year, 2 year perspective. It's just the short term that is a little painful.
No, means from Elliott perspective, means they have completed their second wave or
Yes.
C down still pending?
Yes, so starting from 2022, they are all completed their second waves.
Okay.
Third waves are in very, very early stages of happening. But they have started. I think in some of them, it's pretty clear that the third wave has started. In some others, it is like still slow.
Yes, Tata Steel and SAIL are lagging. But JSW is doing
JSW
quite
and Jindal are leading the way. So that's the only difference.
Yes. Okay, sir, I have one more question related to Sensex. So if I go to the weekly chart of Sensex, there is a strong Fibonacci cluster near 69,200. Right now we are near 64,000.
Yeah.
So from pre-COVID highs to COVID lows, the 2.618 fib extension coming near 69,200. And from October 21 highs to June 2022 lows, 1.618 Fibonacci comes near 69,200 as well. So there's a fib cluster near that zone. So I think means a good chance that market might try to test that level.
Right. Yeah.
Yes. Okay, sir. Thanks for your views.
Okay. Thank you. Sharma R. Sharma R. Hi.
Discuss one data with you. I have analyzed data from 2006 to 2022 levels of Nifty from June lows to July August. So it has ranged from 7% to 23%. Nifty goes up from June lows till August. Only one exception was 2019 when Sitaraman has that corporate action has negative point. So otherwise, all these years, the results were positive from 7% to 23%. 23% is the outlier, of course, but I think if the history repeats, that we can get at least 7%. So June lows is around 18,650 around something. So it can go to 20k easily, minimum 20k in up to August mid, yeah, something. Have you?
So you're saying basically that seasonality.
Certainly, every year from 2006 to 2022,
Yeah.
14-year data, 15 year data. So that suggests that from June lows, it minimum target is 7% from till August.
Right.
What are your views, sir?
Yeah. So there is a seasonality thing. I don't know, Jay. So I think Shivam had put out a seasonality chart from Strike.
Yes, sir. So we actually have data till I think it is loaded till 2012 or so. So over there, the average return actually in July is 3%. So that is not specifically from the low point, but it is like from 1st July to, I mean, in the month of July, basically.
Right.
Okay, sir. Basically, no doubt it may or may not happen, but the history says that in 14 years only once was a chance where returns were negative, but every year minimum was 7%.
Yeah. So now what Jay is highlighting, basically we have a seasonality tool on our Strike software, which is also showing that seasonally July ends up being positive, and that sort of aligns with what you're saying.
Right, sir. And sir, are you in cash or fully invested, sir? Just curious to know.
I have stopped saying that because it is misleading to different people what I do and what they should do.
Right, sir. But sir, I am 99% invested. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. VIPS. VIPS. Is there a question?
Yeah, you can hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Now in this, connection of dollar index, correct? Which is inversely proportional to our market, right? Is dollar index also connected with T-bonds?
Yes, so there is some degree of inverse relationship between them, which means when yields fall, the dollar falls and so on.
Yeah, okay. And Bitcoin?
Yeah, Bitcoin is inversely correlated with the dollar.
Yeah, so if Bitcoin goes up, then the dollar goes down.
The dollar is falling. Yes.
Yeah, and if the dollar goes down, our market goes up.
Yes.
Right, no?
Yes, correct.
Okay, because there seems to be some bullishness in the Bitcoin.
Correct. That was the first signal last week when Bitcoin went up. It signaled that a rally is coming.
Yeah, to plus $50,000.
Yeah. Yes.
So that means your targets will be achieved, 19,500. Okay, I better mentally get used to this because at my age I keep forgetting. I'll have to write it somewhere. What you just said. So Bitcoin and indices go together.
Yeah.
And dollar index and dollar don't go together.
Yeah.
And also you said treasuries, right? If treasury drops, market goes up.
Yes.
Correct, no?
Yeah.
So I am told that if the 10-year treasury drops to 2.5%, that will top out of the US market.
Yeah.
So obviously then we got to get out here also. Okay, yeah, thanks.
Sure. Raj.
Good evening, sir.
Yeah.
I want to know the view about agrochemical and chemical sector, which is not performing so far.
I don't think I have insights on that.
Okay. And metal sector like NMDC, which is at very bottom level.
So metal sector, I think we've discussed in detail earlier also that we are waiting for a signal for metal prices to start a recovery. I think bond yields basically staying up are keeping pressure on metal prices, and that's why you're not seeing metal stocks pick up yet. So it's just requires patience for it to happen.
ओके सर, एक्चुअली मेरा जो ये रहता है कि कॉन्ट्रा कॉल कहीं मिले, क्योंकि अभी मैन्युफैक्चरिंग से बढ़ गया है एंड आई थिंक उसमें अभी रिस्क है एज कम्पेयर टू अदर सेक्टर लाइक आईटी एंड केमिकल और मेटल सेक्टर.
नहीं, मैं बात नहीं समझा.
एक्चुअली मैन्युफैक्चरिंग सेक्टर इतनी तेजी से बढ़ा है, अब ये 3 महीने में ही डबल, और बहुत सारे इवन एबीबी सीमेंस लाइक लार्ज कैप यानी कि थोड़े पे बड़ी कंपनियां हैं, इवन दे आर ग्रोइंग वेरी फास्ट इन शेयर मार्केट के वैल्यूएशन के बेसिस पे, मार्केट कैप के बेसिस पे.
सही है.
तो आई थिंक इट इज जस्टिफाइड.
ये आवाज कट जाती है बीच में. I think he lost the connection. Manish.
Hi, Rohit sir.
Hi.
I just wanted to know your view about the FMCG sector and media sector.
So FMCG, broadly speaking, does well, but I don't think they'll do as well as they did in the last decade.
Okay.
और मीडिया पे
Even
मेरा
in the
ज़्यादा ध्यान नहीं है. It is very speculative.
okay, okay. FMCG में like I'm saying small cap or a mid cap. I'm not looking for a large cap.
तो मुश्किल ही है ना. ज़्यादातर कंपनियां इसमें बड़ी हैं.
Okay, 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 okay. Got it, sir. Got it.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, I think we've sort of done more than 40 minutes of questioning. We're almost coming to 2 hours of session. I see 1 or 2 more requests. I don't think I can take more than that. So let's finish with that. I'll take the 2 more that are showing up. That will be the last. Rohit, we can start with you.
Hello. Yeah, hi.
Hello.
You can hear me?
Yeah, hi. Yes.
Hi, Rohit. Okay, so I was looking for companies like PFC, REC, and they have been running for quite a time now. And last
Yeah.
6 months, 1 year, I've been looking at those and tracking those and seeing they have been making new highs after every 2 or 1 month. So how do you see these companies and CPSE, ETF, and these companies in the upcoming years? Do you see them running
I
more?
see them doing very well.
Very
To
well.
broadly put it, they all started from a value perspective, because when we go back, I think the PSU index bottomed in October of 2020, much later than the market itself. And then from there on, we've seen it move through the value phase. I think still not come out completely from the value phase, because a lot of them are on very high dividend yields.
Yes.
And they move from value to growth, because when you have an economic expansion, what you've seen historically, because they are such large companies, they do tend to end up doing well. So my sense is they continue to do pretty well on a 2-year, 3-year basis. There will be growth that will show up because of all the activity that will happen in the country as a whole, and therefore remain positive on the entire segment.
So what do you suggest? Should we go ahead and buy a single stock or complete like CPSE ETF or something like that?
That is a very individual choice. Now,
that's-
some people like to just take a sector exposure, and some people like to be in a single outperformer.
Yeah, thank you very much. Because I have been looking at the charts as well, and I see multi-year breakouts. And last 20,
Yes.
30 years, they have been consolidating in a range, swinging lows and highs, and now they're like just breaking out.
Definitely.
Okay, thank you very much, Rohit.
Yeah.
Lovely listening
Yeah.
to you
Thanks.
always. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Bye. So, Abhay, final question, Abhay.
Hello, Rohit sir. Thanks for giving the opportunity, and it's always my pleasure to hear you. And I would appreciate you like you never lose your temper. I see you lot of spaces there. People are with different opinion, but you always keep and calm with your view and never go for the argument. Anything that is something everyone should learn from you. Uh, my question is, I have almost two questions. One is like, so Nifty is almost all-time high, but there are some stocks which are not performing, or like कुछ स्टॉक्स ऐसे हैं स्मॉल कैप मिड कैप में विच आर परफॉर्मिंग बट वी हैव फियर लाइक कि अभी अगर रिवर्स हुआ तो फिर बेटर है कि प्रॉफिट बुक कर लो. तो इसमें आप क्या इस तरह की चीज में सजेस्ट करोगे? और दूसरा जो अभी आईसीआईसीआई सिक्योरिटी का डीलिस्टिंग हो रहा है, तो व्हाट इज योर व्यू कि अभी जो रेट है इस पर बेच देना चाहिए या फिर हमको वेट करना चाहिए कि वो किस रेट पर प्रपोजल लेकर के आते हैं, और whether we are getting ICICI Bank stock or not?
I cannot specifically say something on ICICI Securities, but I will answer the other question. जो दूसरा आपका सवाल है, वाई एम नॉट सेइंग, क्योंकि सी एक तो आईसेक को मैंने वो स्टडी नहीं किया है कि सी हमें पता नहीं कि वो किस रेट पे लेके आएगा, क्या करेगा. So it's always a tough call for anybody when something like this is happening. The real question is whether you want to continue to own it. And often market is smart, so it would have discounted the pricing. And therefore, if you want to continue to own ICICI Bank from here on, then it's one and the same, right? That is how you have to think about it. बाकी मिड कैप या लार्ज कैप किस में जाना चाहिए, कैसे मैनेज करना चाहिए, इट फाइनली कम्स डाउन टू योर एबिलिटी टू मैनेज रिस्क. क्योंकि रिस्क क्या होता है? रिस्क ये होता है कि अगर बाजार गिर गया तो क्या होगा. तो बाजार गिर गया तो फिर तो लार्ज कैप में भी फंस सकते हैं. और मिड कैप में आप कंपनी कैसी ले रहे हो? अगर आप कंपनी ऐसी ले रहे हो जिसमें वो परमानेंटली फंस जाए, 5 सर्किट नीचे लग जाए, तो ऐसी कंपनी को अवॉइड करना या जान पाना कि हाँ ये इस तरह की कंपनी है, वो भी ज़रूरी है. अगर उस तरह की जानकारी आप नहीं बाजार को देख के समझ पाते हो तो ज़रूर उसको अवॉइड करना चाहिए. बट वो पता चल जाता है अगर आप मतलब मार्केट कुछ समय से देख रहे हैं. अगर मैं कोई भी चार्ट खोलता हूँ मुझे पहले ही समझ में आ जाता है कि ये किस तरह की कंपनी, चार्ट देख के. क्योंकि आपने अगर एक बुल मार्केट बेयर मार्केट देख लिया, जैसे मैंने ये चीज़ 2001 में समझी कि उस टाइम पे जितने कंपनियां जो चली थी केतन पारेख के नाम से या जो भी इस सेक्टर में थे, क्या कहते हैं, आई सेक्टर, आई स्टॉक्स बोलते थे हम लोग, इंफॉर्मेशन टेक्नोलॉजी, मीडिया एंड दैट इज एंटरटेनमेंट एंड आईटी. तो उसमें कई सेकंड लाइन कंपनियां थी, सर्किट ऊपर सर्किट नीचे चलती थी, उनके चार्ट्स ही अतरंगे रहते हैं. तो उस तरह का जब पैटर्न देखता हूँ किसी भी स्टॉक में तो उसको बाजू कर देता हूँ, इसको नहीं छूना है. तो दैट इज़ अ बेसिक थिंग. और उस चीज़ को आप बैलेंस शीट से भी वेरीफाई कर सकते हो. इसके लिए कोई क्वालिफिकेशन नहीं चाहिए, बट सिंपल है, आप अगर बैलेंस शीट खोलोगे देखोगे नंबर नहीं है, या कुछ उसमें गड़बड़ है. अगर वो प्रॉफिट भी दिखा रहा है तो कैश फ्लो है कि नहीं, ये सिंपल चीज़ अगर आप क्रॉस वेरीफाई कर लोगे तो आपको समझ में आ जाएगा कि लायक है कि ना लायक है. तो अगर आप लायक मिड कैप ले रहे हो तो कोई इशू नहीं होना चाहिए, क्योंकि मिड कैप अगर बाजार गिरेगा तो मिड कैप भी गिरेगा, लार्ज कैप भी गिरेगा. उसको मैनेज कैसे करना है, स्टॉप लॉस कहाँ पे रखना है, किस लेवल के टूटने पे पोजीशन काटना है, ये चीज़ सीखना ज़रूरी है हर एक के लिए. उसके बिना तो आप फिर काम नहीं कर सकते हैं. तो थोड़ी सी ये बातों को नज़र में रखें. थोड़ी a little bit of learning on how to manage trades, क्योंकि अपॉर्चुनिटी जहाँ पे है उसको मिस आउट करना भी कोई नहीं चाहता है. बट इफ यू आस्क मी माई व्यू दैट राइट नाउ इज देयर अ रिस्क कि अरे सडनली क्रैश हो गया, सब फंस गया, ऐसा लग नहीं रहा है मुझे. दैट इज माई व्यू.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
So with that, we'll call it a day on today's spaces. Thank you everyone who's participated, asked questions. I think almost everyone's taken. I've tried to take, and it's 10 p.m. It's been a 2-hour long session. I've spoken enough Jay, if you want to conclude, I'll leave it to you to conclude today's session, and then we can wrap it up.
No, sir. So your opening, speech was, it covered everything. But yes, I think I can see. Even when I get few phone calls, they ask the same thing. कि correction आएगा क्या, कितना आएगा? So I think even in our midweek today, which we have recorded and put it on the YouTube video, YouTube channel as well. So there we have mentioned that as of now, in the short term, there are no such readings which are getting too extreme, which is telling us that there is not a lot of exuberance that is there in the market right now. So in that case, I think since March of 2023, the index has been holding the 20-day average and it is inching higher. So I think as long as that is intact, uh, there is a chance that there might be little bit of correction here and there, but probably 20-day, as long as that is held, I don't see a risk of a major correction. I think that is where most of the people are asking that how big the correction will be. The first, I think, starting point even to think of a correction would be to see Nifty closing below 20-day average, and maybe that is where we can do a space probably and think about the lower levels. But as of now, that doesn't look like a probable case, because even we have been highlighting that there is a extension that is going on in the Nifty index, and if we go by the wave counts, there are still a couple of more legs on the upside that is still pending. So maybe a lot of questions today has been that are we going to get a big correction or no? So that is kind of a brief summary that keep watching out for the 20-day average, and I think as long as that holds, the near-term trend at least should be bullish.
Right, with that, let's call it a day. Everyone, thank you. And until next time, and don't miss out on trying out Strike. You simply need to go to web.strike.money, sign up, and you get to use it for the next 50 days, and check out the add-on features as they keep showing up in the coming weeks. Thank you.